Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Nora, and today I'm diving into a story that flipped my world upside down, broke me into a million pieces, and ultimately taught me how to shine brighter than ever. This isn't just a love story, it's a sprawling, heart-wrenching, soul-stirring epic about falling in love with someone who felt like a starlit dream, uncovering secrets that tore it apart, and rebuilding myself through the chaos. If you've ever poured your heart into someone who seemed like your forever, only to have it shattered by layers of lies, or if you've clawed your way back to yourself after losing everything, this one's for you. It's a long, wild ride full of twists, tears, laughter, and triumphs, so grab a coffee, a snack, maybe a cozy blanket, and settle in for the journey. Let's get into it. I was 25 when this all began. I'd been living in Seattle, Washington, for a few years, working as a freelance graphic designer for local coffee roasters and tech startups. My apartment was a cozy loft in Fremont. Think exposed brick walls, a cluttered desk with sketch pads and coffee mugs, and a balcony overlooking the canal where kayaks glided by. Life was a vibrant blur, designing logos for artisanal brews, biking through Pike Place Market, editing late into the night with the Space Needle glowing in the distance. I loved Seattle's moody charm, its rainy streets, its indie bookstores, its coffee-fueled creativity, but I was lonely. Dating here was a grind, tech guys with no depth, fleeting coffee dates that fizzled fast. I wanted a connection that felt like a rainy Seattle night, deep, soulful, unforgettable. It all started one foggy fall evening at a local art walk in Ballard. I was there for work, designing posters for a gallery event, weaving through crowds with my sketchbook, capturing the vibe of the moment. That's when I saw him, Finn. He was a painter, setting up a booth with vibrant canvases of Puget Sound sunsets and misty forests, his curly brown hair tucked under a beanie, wearing a paint-splattered flannel that glowed under the string lights. His art was electric, bold, emotional, pulling you into its colors. I sketched one of his pieces, and he caught me, flashing a grin that made my heart skip. Turning my art into art, he teased, his voice warm with a slight Pacific Northwest lilt. I laughed, showed him my sketch, and we started talking. Finn was a dreamer, born in a small Washington coastal town, raised on Bob Dylan and rainy hikes. By day, he worked as a barista, but his passion was painting, dreaming of a solo gallery show in Seattle. He had this magnetic charm, part artist, part wanderer, quoting Mary Oliver one minute, joking about Seattle's obsession with cold brew the next. We talked until the art walk closed, swapping stories about our favorite spots. He loved the fish throwing at Pike Place. I was obsessed with sunrise shoots at Gasworks Park. When he asked to see me again, I said yes, my heart already buzzing with possibility. Our first date was at Discovery Park, hiking through the misty trails, sharing a thermos of coffee as the waves crashed below. Finn was different. He listened, really listened, asking about my childhood in a quiet Montana town, my love for designing stories through art. He showed me a small canvas he'd painted, a vibrant piece of a girl under a starry sky. "That's you, Nora," he said, and I felt my cheeks burn. It was like something out of a poem, and I was hooked. We started dating, and it felt like the world had turned up the colors on my life. Our relationship was a masterpiece. Within weeks, we were inseparable. We'd drive out to the Olympic Peninsula, chasing sunsets over the coastline, my sketchbook filled with his paintings and my doodles. We'd hit up Seattle's indie bookstores, spending hours lost in Elliott Bay Book Company, reading passages to each other in hushed tones. He'd surprise me with little gifts, a hand-painted bookmark, a poem tucked in my bag. We'd spend lazy Sundays at his place, a cluttered apartment in Capitol Hill filled with canvases, easels, and half-burned candles, cooking vegan chili while he played Fleet Foxes on his record player. "You're my muse, Nora," he'd say, and I'd laugh, saying I was just a girl with a tablet and too many ideas. "Nah, you're my whole palette," he'd reply, and I believed him. We built our own traditions. Every Saturday, we'd go to the Fremont Sunday Market, browsing handmade jewelry and sampling food truck bao buns. One time, he bought me a silver ring with a tiny wave charm. "So you'll always carry the ocean with you," he said, slipping it on my finger. We'd end the day at a cozy cafe in Queen Anne, sipping oat milk lattes and sketching together, lost in our own world. We talked about the future constantly, him landing a gallery show, me starting a design studio for local artists. We planned a road trip to Mount Rainier, dreaming of painting and designing under the stars. "You and me, Nora, we're gonna paint the world," he'd say, and I pictured us building a life as vibrant as Seattle's rainy glow. Our first summer together was magical. We'd kayak on Lake Union, stopping to sketch the houseboats or share a beer on the shore. We'd sneak into rooftop art parties, dancing under fairy lights, the city skyline twinkling behind us. He'd invite me to his painting sessions, letting me film his process, and I'd share rough cuts of my design projects, nervous but thrilled when he'd say, "Nora, you're gonna change the art world." We celebrated my 26th birthday at a dive bar in Fremont, where he painted a small mural on a napkin, dedicating it to me. The crowd cheered, and I felt like the luckiest girl in the world. But around the 15-month mark, the colors started to fade. Finn got elusive. He'd go silent for days, blaming painting slumps or family drama back home. He'd cancel plans, like a weekend at a cabin in Leavenworth, saying he had a last-minute art commission. I tried to be supportive. Artists have their chaos, right? But my gut was screaming. He'd leave his phone on silent, get defensive when I asked about his day. My best friend, Sage, noticed it too. "Nora, something's not right," she said over coffee at Le Panier. "Don't ignore the red flags." But I did. I wanted our Starlit romance to stay perfect. The first red flag was a text I saw by accident. We were at his apartment, binge-watching the OA, when his phone lit up. "Miss you. When are you back in Portland?" from someone named Eliana. My heart sank. I asked, "Who's Eliana?" He brushed it off, "Just a friend from an art collective," but his voice was too quick, too tense. I let it go, but the doubt grew. Then came the art shows in Portland that didn't add up. His Instagram showed him at bars, not galleries. I started noticing little things. A woman's paintbrush in his studio. A receipt for a dinner for two when he'd said he was working late. Sage kept saying, "Check his phone, Nora," but I didn't want to be paranoid. Until I couldn't ignore it anymore. The first crack in the facade came at an art walk I was designing for. Finn's paintings were on display, and I was so proud, capturing every brushstroke. But afterward, I saw him in the crowd, laughing with a woman I didn't know, tall, with a bohemian vibe, touching his arm a little too long. When I asked who she was, he said, "Just a buyer, Nora, chill." But his tone was sharp, defensive. I let it go, but the unease lingered. Then came the late-night texts he'd hide, the art trips to Vancouver with vague explanations. I started feeling like a sketch in his background, not the centerpiece. The truth erupted one rainy March night. We were at my loft, cooking soup, when his phone buzzed on the counter. Another text from Eliana. "Can't wait to see you, love. Seattle's too far." My heart stopped. I confronted him, my voice shaking. "Finn, who's Eliana?" He froze, then sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Okay, Nora, I need to tell you everything." And out it came. Eliana was his fiancée, living in Portland. They'd been engaged for 3 years, planning to move to Seattle together, but he'd come alone for art opportunities, keeping her in the dark. That wasn't all. There was another woman in Vancouver, a gallery curator he'd met at a show, a fling in Tacoma from an art walk, and a casual thing in Bellingham with a fellow painter. He'd been juggling multiple lives, multiple loves, weaving a web of lies. "I love you, Nora," he said, tears streaming. I didn't know how to choose. But his words felt like a smudged canvas. I was betrayed, humiliated, like our entire romance was a painting he'd copied from someone else's gallery. I screamed at him to leave, threw the wave ring across the room, and watched him disappear into the rain. That night, I shattered. I cried until my throat burned, deleted every text, every photo, burned the playlist he made me. Seattle's rainy streets felt like a mockery. Every bookstore, every coffee shop, every canvas reminded me of him. I felt like a fool. How had I missed the signs? Was I not enough? I replayed every moment, every market stroll, every coastal drive, every painting, searching for where I went wrong. There were no answers, just a raw, gaping wound. I called Sage, sobbing, and she stayed over, holding me as I fell apart, promising I'd find my way back. The next year and a half was a fog of pain. I went through the motions at work, designing logos, meeting deadlines, but my heart wasn't in it. I avoided Ballard, the cafes, even my balcony, scared I'd see something that reminded me of Finn. Friends tried to help. Sage dragged me to trivia nights, my coworker Theo invited me to art walks, but I was numb. I stopped sketching, let my books gather dust, gained weight from stress-eating food cart dumplings. One low point was finding a bookmark he'd painted for me, tucked in a novel, "To Nora, my Starlight." I tore it up, hating how it still hurt. I started questioning everything. Was love just a lie? Was I too trusting, too desperate for a fairy tale? The pain wasn't linear. Some days, I'd feel okay, then hear a song that reminded me of him and spiral. I started therapy with a kind woman named Dr. Morgan, spilling my hurt in quiet sessions. She said, "Nora, your heart's broken, but it's still yours. Let it heal." It was a start, but I wasn't there yet. I messed up at work, delivering sloppy designs, and my boss suggested a break. I felt like I was failing at everything. I stopped going to art events, scared I'd see Finn's paintings. I even avoided my favorite coffee shop, fearing I'd see a couple that reminded me of us. The loneliness was crushing. I'd lie awake, wondering if I'd ever feel whole again. About 2 years later, I hit a turning point. I was at a bookstore in Capitol Hill, staring at a blank sketch pad, when I saw a flyer for a pottery workshop. On a whim, I signed up. The first class was a mess, clay everywhere, my vase collapsing, but it was the first time I'd laughed in months. The instructor, a woman named Ruby, said, "Nora, let the clay hold your story. It's not about perfection." I started pouring my pain into every piece, shaping bowls and mugs that carried my grief. In that class, I met Juniper, a sculptor with a contagious laugh and a warm heart. She became my lifeline, inviting me to art nights where we'd sip cider and create without fear. I started saying yes to life again. I joined a writing group in Fremont, sharing short stories about heartbreak and resilience. The feedback was electric. People said my words made them feel seen. I signed up for swing dancing classes in Pioneer Square, stumbling through steps but finding joy in the rhythm. I started hiking in the Cascades, climbing Mount Si at dawn, feeling my strength return with every step. I took a solo trip to the San Juan Islands, staying in a cabin, journaling by the water's edge. It was scary, but it taught me I could be my own safe place. New people entered my life. At a design meetup, I met Ezra, a photographer who shared my love for storytelling through visuals. We started collaborating on a photo series about Seattle's hidden corners, coffee shops, street art, ferry docks. It wasn't romantic, but it was real, reminding me of my passion. I volunteered at a local animal shelter, adopting a scruffy dog named Tide who became my shadow. I tried kayaking on Lake Washington, flipping over a dozen times but laughing through every splash. My creativity roared back. I revived my sketch pad, filling it with designs and poems, and started a blog, sharing my art and reflections on healing. It grew fast. Readers said my vulnerability inspired them. I pitched a mural project to a local coffee shop, and they commissioned me to paint their walls with scenes of Seattle's landscapes. Painting it, surrounded by a community who believed in me, felt like a dream. I also started a YouTube channel, posting vlogs about my journey, design, heartbreak, healing. The response was overwhelming. Viewers shared their own stories, creating a community I never expected. The healing wasn't linear. Some days, I'd still hear a folk song and feel a pang. But therapy helped, and so did my new community. I started hosting open mic nights at a local bookstore, giving other artists a space to share. I took more solo trips, to Olympic National Park to sketch rainforests, to Vancouver for its art scene. Each adventure rebuilt a piece of me. I even rekindled my love for art walks, going to shows again, not as Finn's girlfriend but as Nora, the designer. 7 years later, I ran into Finn at an art walk in Ballard. He looked worn, his beanie frayed, his dreams still just dreams. He said Eliana left him, that his career stalled. I lost the best thing, Nora, he said. I waited for the old ache, the spark. Nothing. I'm good, Finn, I said, smiling. I painted my own starlight. I walked away, the city lights glowing behind me, feeling lighter than ever. Now, I'm 33, living my truth. My murals are across Seattle, my channel's thriving, and I'm planning a trip to New Zealand to design for a local gallery. I date when it feels right, but I know my worth doesn't depend on anyone else. Love's not a perfect painting, it's messy, real, and possible when you're whole. Alright, guys, what's your story of love, lies, or finding your starlight? Drop it in the comments, let's lift each other up. If this resonated, like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Thanks for sticking with me through this epic ride. See you next time.